Hey, Adam,
Jeez,
one
why,
thing.
why do you think they're called bumpers, Gary?
I don't know.
Because they come at the beginning, at the end, like bumpers.
Alex, you're a marketing guy. Do you like that design behind Paul? Does that logo thing look pretty cool to you?
Hey, I forgot to hit the record button.
Yeah, that's really professional, isn't it?
Well, this is a professional podcast.
I met her in a parking lot and was handed 2 little Yorkies. And the only person I knew that knew Yorkies was Paul. So I called Paul and said, Paul.
Sweet Talk is a weekly 20-minute podcast brought to you by the Continuing Education and Workforce Training Division of Idaho State University's College of Technology. Find us on Apple Podcast, Spotify, and SoundCloud and subscribe today. Now it's time to get started with Sweet Talk.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Sweet Talk, Idaho State University's Continuing Education and Workforce Training Weekly podcast. As you can see, 2 of our regular co-hosts, Gary and Paul, are out. They are both out today, so we are fortunate enough to have Megan, our video intern, and we also have Shirley, who has more institutional knowledge about this place than anyone on earth, co-hosting with us. How are you, Megan?
I'm pretty good, Angie. How are you?
I'm doing well. And how about yourself, Shirley? How's your Friday starting out?
It's a Friday. So far, so good.
Yeah.
You know,
For
they
all
say when the boss is away, the mice play.
The mice will play. For all of you watching, this does come out on Wednesdays, but we do record these on Fridays. Today, we have a very special guest with us. Many of you in the Pocatello and Chubbuck area have heard of him. Today, we have Andy Whittier. Andy is an ISU alumni and former ISU athlete. He has, for the football team, he has since recently switched athletic direction. We'll let him talk a little bit about that today. Welcome, Andy. Can you please introduce yourself and tell everybody a little bit more about yourself and your new sport?
Yeah, just thanks for having me on, guys. Angie, especially, I know we kind of go way back to when I was an intern for Bannock Development Corporations. That's kind of how our relationship started. But yeah, my name's Andy Whittier. I grew up here in the Pocatello area, moved here in '99, lived here ever since. So it's really easy for me to say that Idaho and Pocatello are my home. I love being here. I love being able to represent Pocatello, ISU, and everything ISU incorporates as well. Really just being able to give back to the community is something I love, and being able to represent us on a larger scale and take the name of Idaho and Pocatello across the nation and hopefully overseas is something I really look forward to.
So can you tell us a little bit about, I know that you've switched sports. You were a football athlete for ISU, and now you are a men's skeleton athlete. Yeah. Can you tell us a little bit about how you made that transition? I've talked to you previously, so I know a little about how you ended up, but I think it's a really interesting story for people to kind of, how did you go from this football athlete to sliding down a tube on a sled?
Right. So I guess we'll start. So for those that don't know, I compete for Team USA in the Winter Olympic sport of skeleton. And most people's thoughts are, oh, that's the one where you go feet first. And that's actually luge. So we're all on the same track. Bobsled, luge, and skeleton share the same track when it comes to the Winter Olympics. The difference is bobsled, you're obviously in a sled, either by yourself or with some teammates. Luge, you're going feet first. And then skeleton, we're going head first. So the way I make this transition was after my playing days with ISU, we had our pro day, had a couple opportunities with the Canadian Football League, nothing panned out. I wasn't done with my athletic career. I still felt like I had a lot to give. I just didn't know what direction I wanted to go, kind of what my next step was going to be. And as much fun that we poke at social media and our phones listening to us and a bunch of good stuff like that, I was sitting at home in February of 2020, just scrolling through Facebook, and an ad popped up that said, Dairy Life presents next Olympic hopeful. And I was like, this seems really awesome. And 2 things went through my mind. I was like, this is either super real or this is a scam and a virus and I'm about to ruin my phone. So I took the chance. I clicked on it anyways. I was like, oh, this is cool or it's not. turns out it was real. And then kind of the way the process started at that time was they would do regional combines, like Northwest, Southwest, Southeast, Northeast, stuff like that. You send in your numbers from your athletics, whatever you played, football, basketball, baseball, track, field, whatever it may have been. And you send those in, and then if they like them, they'll invite you out to these combines. You participate in the combines. You do, at the time, it was back squat, power clean, shot toss, 40-yard dash, broad jump, just a lot of explosive drills, because that's one of the biggest things for our sport, for all three, between skeleton, bobsled, and luge. And so I did my part. I read it. I followed their YouTube link. It was going to be like season 3 or 4 of when they were going to do it. And I was like, oh, this is really cool. And just a little side tangent off of that. In my mind, anyone who wants to be an Olympian or has ever been an Olympian, I was like, oh, your parents are Olympians. They got together, they had you. And so that was just kind of like the life cycle people went into. That's just what made sense to me, because you don't really see much stuff around here of like, oh, I'm training for the Youth Olympics from birth up until you're an adult. So to me, that was how the process started. So this was a really cool adventure to go down. And so, like I said, this was February of 2020. I sent my numbers in, and then obviously we all know what happened in March, and the whole world just shut down for 2 weeks. And so they're like, we're going to try this next month in April. And I'm like, okay, cool, that works. And then we got the same email in April, May, June. And then you're like, you know what? We're just not going to do it right now. I was like, well, that was a fun 3-month dream. But by that point, I had followed all of their social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all the good stuff for USABS. And they're like, you know what? We're going to do a virtual combine. Just send us in your 40-yard dash numbers, your broad jump, and your athletic highlight tape from whatever sport you played. Have it in by August, September, whatever the date was. So I sent mine in on the last day, just wanted to train as much as I could, sent it in on like a Saturday, had an email on Sunday, had a phone call on Monday, and then a month later, I was in Park City, Utah, learning the sport of skeleton. And that's kind of the ride we took, or the ride how we all got started. And I haven't looked back since.
Okay, so I have a follow-up question with this. Did they pick the skeleton for you, or did you get to decide like which one of those 3 you wanted to pursue?
Yeah, and so that's a great question. I forget about this all the time, because most people are like, oh, why wouldn't you just go do bobsled and be safe in a sled? And I'm like, that's a great thought, because I actually didn't even know what skeleton was either. I Googled it, and I watched the YouTube videos, and I'm like, I probably won't do that. Turns out I'm not the body type for bobsled. You want, like I'm going to use football references because it's just easier in my world. You want like big athletic linebacker type of guys, pretty tall, pretty thick, pretty stacked, big athletic dudes, because the sleds weigh anywhere from 200 to 300 pounds, depending on if it's a one man, 2-man, or 3-man or 4-man sled. They're heavy suckers. And so you got to take that from a stationary start to a full sprint and jump in. So people built like me, a little tinier, probably about 165, 170, were built for more of the skeleton realm. Tinier, going to be on the sled, a little more aerodynamic type of deal. And so, yeah, you don't really get to choose. It's kind of like, you've got the body type for this, you've got the body type for that. We're going to see which one works best for you, but it's generally you're fitting into one of those 2 categories.
Okay, I have a question for you. This is from a mom's perspective.
Yes.
Did your mother know this is what you were going to do? And did she have a complete meltdown when you said, Mom, this is what I'm going to do?
So pretty funny. I didn't even tell my mom I was doing this. I think I got the call to say I was going to Park City, and I was like, hey, Mom, I'm going to go to Park City to do this thing.
She's like, all right, bye.
Yeah. And it is beneficial. It's only 2.5 hours away. But what's interesting though is I have some family friends that were down in Park City one time, and they came to some training, and any spectators are allowed to watch us train during the season and stuff like that. It's open, or the shades are open is what we say. So you can be, I don't know, 3-4 feet away from us as we're coming down the track, and it's a rush, right? We're going down 80 plus miles an hour. And so it's like that, it's quick. And my family friends that were there, I look up to them as like my second set of parents. And so I go past them, they meet me at the finish line, and the first thing, it's Dave and Corey Spillett is who they are. The first thing Corey says to me is, your mother is never allowed to come watch you, because it is terrifying. So
I
my
was
mom
gonna
has yet to
say.
see me, but I'm hoping she comes out this year.
She has not seen you come down the hill.
Nope, just videos so far. So yeah, she
Oh,
hasn't seen it yet.
Wow.
But we'll see what happens this year with some racing and stuff. When
you may need to
come
find
down.
another home.
Yeah,
She may disown you,
yes.
So
or you may find your door duct taped, stapled, boarded,
And never allowed to leave again.
exactly.
So how does the ranking work? Like, I know that in like baseball and basketball and things like that, you have like AA, AAA, like minor league, major league. How does that play into your sport at all? Or is it just like one league?
Yeah, so we're all Team USA once we get there. Once you make it past your rookie camps and development phases and stuff, and then I'm going to use football terminology just because it's much easier in my realm, and I kind of assume people know general football knowledge. So we have 3 levels essentially. So we have what's called our North American Cup or NAC races, and that's like our freshman level. Like that's, you're getting your feet wet, you're starting to kind of see what the racing world's like. You're obviously only racing on our North American tracks, which are Park City in Utah, Lake Placid, New York, where they had the 1980 games, Miracle on Ice, and then Whistler in Canada. So like you'll rotate between all 3 of those. And that's kind of our freshman level. And where I'm at in my racing, that's currently the circuit I'm on. The next step up is our Europa Cup or Europe Cup. And so you'll still race the North American ones, and then you'll also do the ones over all of our tracks in Europe. I shouldn't say our tracks, but all those countries' tracks as well. So you'll race those, and that's kind of like our mid-level guys who are above us, and then they're kind of pushing on that next level, which is called our World Championship Cups or World Cup level. And those guys are the people who, when the Olympics come the year before, those are the people trying to compete and represent whatever nation they're from. So North American Cup is kind of like freshman, Europa Cup is like JV or junior varsity, and then the World Cup or World Championship is like your varsity if we're talking like high school football levels.
So how long does it take to make that progression?
So kind of like football stuff, as hard as you train and as hard as you dedicate and commit yourself to this is how fast you're going to move up, right? Right now I've talked to my coaches. I don't have any intentions of being in the 2026 games that are in Italy. My goal is the 2030, 2034 games when they should be back in Park City, which will be really cool for the United States and then just our local area as well. So my goal in the next 2 years is to become really good at the very basics, because I think that's how you become great at anything, is hone in the foundation of whatever you're doing. So that's my goal for the next 2 years, is dominate that, become really great at my North American Cup circuit, move up into the Europa circuit, do the same thing for the next 2, 3, 4 years, and then be ready to compete at the World Cup level. And that's kind of my trajectory and goal for what I'm aiming for.
Now, speaking of, I mean, 34 Olympics are a bit off.
Yeah.
So I know that most Olympians are very young, with the exception of some sports. I believe shooting and equestrian sports have the oldest Olympic ages. I mean, they're compete. Some of them are in their 70s competing in these sports. So how does that trajectory affect like you and the skeleton? Can people compete in their like 40s and 50s? Or does it really kind of navigate toward younger men and women?
Right. And so your age definitely plays a factor into this. I personally believe, and this is just the mentality I have, I'm not aging past 27. I feel like that's a perfect prime number to stop at. So I've just decided I'm going to stop now. But absolutely, you want to take the peak athletes we have from the time they've exited whatever sport they were playing from college, and to where if they were in a pro sport for wherever they were, generally playing till about their mid 30s, maybe late 38. And that's kind of our time frame. I would say from like 22 to 38 is like your golden opportunity for men and women to be as explosive, as powerful, as strong, as fast as possible, to give your nation the best opportunity to come home with a medal.
That's neat.
Yeah, well, Do you have a question, Megan? I think I just
did.
cut you off. Yeah.
Yeah, you're good. I had one question too, since you did football in the past. Do any of your skills from football kind of help you out with skeleton, or are there different things you have to do?
Yes, so it was pretty cool. So just on the base level, obviously being explosive, being fast are two of the big components, because we also have to push a sled from a dead stop on ice, sprinting at a very awkward position. It's not like track where you eventually stand up and it's just as fast as you can go over top. You're hunched down the whole time. You can only swing one arm because the other arm's holding the sled, and the sled weighs, give or take, your weight. If you're a heavier person, your sled's going to be lighter. If you're a lighter person like me, your sled's going to be unruly heavily. And so you have to be able to control that and be strong enough for that as well. So the power and explosive part, power, speed, and explosivity is what I translate most from the football realm. The other part is spatial awareness, being able to understand where you're at on the ice, give or take the walls that are next to you, the curvature of the ice, how high up you are, how low you are, where you're at in the pressure, the type of oscillation you're feeling. It really kind of lets you know when you need to get on your steers, your down steers, your up steers. Yeah, the spatial recognition coming from a football field 100 yards wide by 53 and a third, or 100 yards long, 53 and a third yards wide, to something just a little arm span wide, to something 20 feet tall on some curves. Being able to understand where you're at in relationship to gravity really is pretty cool.
Okay, so I have a follow-up question from what you just said. When you're talking about, and this is kind of two-part, when you're talking about the sled itself being lighter for heavy guys and heavy for light men or women, are all the sleds the same, and that weight is comparative to their body weight percentage, or do smaller people have a bigger sled to give them more weight?
I think the second one. So I can't answer what the weight is for the women because I can't remember off the top of my head. But for men's, we can't go over 120 kilos, right? So we want to take it right up to that line. So like where I'm 170-ish pounds, my sled generally weighs like, I think it was like not 60 kilos, 70 pounds, somewhere around there, 70, 80 pounds, because we want to take it right up to that threshold. And then same thing for girls, they want to take theirs right up to there as well. And so everyone's floating about that same weight. And then the sled design changes. We've got, to my knowledge, we've got a Bromley design and a Schneider design, both designed differently, both legal for racing. And then it just depends. If I do end up getting heavier, we would take weight out of my sled. If I, for some reason, got lighter, we would put lead weight into the sled, whether it be in the front or back. And that's kind of how we determine what type of sled we're going to use.
No, and my second part to that question is, and this may sound silly, but do you steer them, and how do you do that?
And that's the craziest part, is steering something at 80 miles an hour without a steering wheel, essentially, is just body movements, right? So one, you want to be as relaxed as possible on a sled. I mean,
Relaxed.
Yeah, it's only 80 miles an hour. You can relax. It's the fastest 50 to 55 seconds downhill of your life. So yeah, so when you're trying to be as aerodynamic as possible, so you want to keep your shoulders, try and move in. So you want to try and keep your shoulders down, your head's going to be up, but you don't want it too far up, because then that creates essentially drag and just a parachute with your chest. So you want to stay tucked in, stay nice and low, keep your feet tight or together on the backside. And then the way you steer is actually opposite shoulder, opposite knee. And you only move them just very minimally. So if I were to like throw my shoulder like this, the sled would, it would be very bad. I'd slam into a wall. So it's just very, very micro movements that'll dictate the sled. And just kind of a building on that, with our runners is what we call them. It's what's on the actual ice, just nice metal bars that we polish up so they're super smooth for race day. So we call what's put called putting rock in those. So it's like, if this is my runner and this is the bottom piece that would be against the ice, I would put tension in a bolt up here that would eventually bend it like this. And so only there's less friction right here. So there'd only be a little bit of it on the ice. So in theory, you should be going faster because there's less friction.
So
Okay, well, go ahead, Shirley.
in order to prepare for this, now I'm, the movie Cool Running back in the day,
100%.
where you saw these guys jump in the bathtub and they're practicing their turns and what they should do. How do you get to where you practice those turns on that? Yeah, coming down the hill to know kind of, okay, I'm going to go 10 feet and there's going to be a right turn, 12 feet, there's going to be a left turn, 16 feet, I better hang on for dear life because it's straight ahead. How do
Yeah.
you practice for that? Or is there any practice that you can do?
Yes. Yes. So we'll back it up a little bit. So we'll start at the top of the track, right? So we have to work on our starts. Can't do the rest of the track without it. So over the summer, like right now, it's obviously too warm. We're not anywhere around ice to be able to slide a whole track, right? So we just opened up one in Park City, and then in Lake Placid, they've had one for a while. We have outdoor push tracks, which is essentially like a roller coaster for the sled. So it's just locked into some rails, and then we can practice our starts just in like track spikes. So that's really beneficial. We can't do the whole track that way, just because the G-forces and everything wouldn't align well.
Yeah.
And then once winter comes, you probably are only going to take about 3 to 5 runs per day, right? Which seems that's not very much, right? These are 50-second, give or take the track, to a minute maybe, long runs. So that's 5 minutes of your entire day, and that's it. And the reason for that is the G-forces that we're pulling are between 3 to 6 Gs sometimes, depending on the track, going around some of the curves and the speed we have. And so it's a lot of force on your body. And then you have what's called like micro concussions, because sometimes the track isn't super smooth. So your head's just doing this the whole time. And so it's just a lot of strain and force on your body. And so we can get those reps like you're talking about when we're going down the track, and that's very important. But what also is a huge benefit for this is taking mental reps, right? So we'll always do a track walk, we'll walk the track, we'll draw it out on our notebooks. That way we know exactly where everything's at. And then when we go back to our flats or our apartments, wherever we're staying for the time, we'll put our sled on the ground. We'll just lay on our sled as if we're going down the track and take those mental reps, or mind runs is what we call them. And we're just here flowing with the course or the track, going with it. And that's how we really kind of prepare way more than the 5 runs we may take a day.
Okay, you guys, we are actually out of time, so we're going to wrap this up. I think we probably need to have Andy back after he competes sometime this winter. So thank you, Shirley and Megan, for helping me co-host. Thank you so much, Andy, for coming on today. Before we wrap up, Andy, I'd like to give you an opportunity to let people know if I know you have some fundraising opportunities and stuff that you've had throughout the summer. If there's anything coming up, can you take a minute to let everyone know how they can get a hold of you or how they can help support you in your Olympic dream?
Yes, I've actually created a sponsorship form. So if you're interested in that, please reach out to me. My number is 208-251-9316, or my email is andy.whittier, WHITTIER .27@gmail.com. I can send that over to you if you're looking to sponsor that way. I do have a fundraiser coming up August 26th at Hooligans. It is a quaffing tournament. There's going to be a live band. There's going to be a bunch of raffle prizes. The grand prize is an Xbox One S as well. And then just taking any type of donations to help fund this as well, because we don't do Winter Olympic sports for money. We actually lose a lot of money while we're doing the sport. We do it for the nation and because we love athletics. If you're looking to donate, Venmo is a great way. It's at Andy Whittier or Skeleton Fund, the number 4 Whittier. And yeah, just anything helps.
Thank you so much. And for those of you outside the Pocatello area that are interested in that fundraiser, Hooligans is in Pocatello, Idaho. It's very easy to look up. It's a popular bar. Thank you, everybody, again for joining us on Sweet Talk. If you like this type of content, please make sure you like, follow, and subscribe, and be safe out there. Thank you, everyone.